welcome to our very first episode of Rest is Nice. My name is Ali Hassan. Uh, we will start today's episode with a bit of introduction for our podcast and also for our today's topic, which is how do people consume news and what are the challenges and problems. I'm Ali Hassan. I'm visualization analyst here, working as a nuclear energy worker in Canada. I have background in computer, so I'm originally from Pakistan. I have two co-hosts with me, Tasif and Mariam. I will let them introduce themselves, and then we will jump into discussing why we are starting this podcast, and then we will jump right into our today's topic. So over to you, Tasif.
I'm Tosif. I am working as a software engineer in digital inspection space. And we have Mariam.
Hi everyone. My name is Mariam Jamila, and I work as a research scientist in artificial intelligence with specialization in computer vision and remote sensing. And I moved to Canada about 6 years ago, so I'm originally from Pakistan.
Awesome, thank you guys. So very important question: why another podcast? So rest is noise. We're starting this considering how there is so much noise out there, especially when you go and you absorb all that media which form your opinions. तो हमने ये realize किया, and we will go one by one for very specific reasons. But हमने ये realize किया कि people usually form their own echo chambers where they want to say the same things over and over, and they want to listen the same things from others as well. They don't want to get out. Usually, they don't want to get out of their comfort zone and get challenged with the opinions, especially opposing opinions. So we wanted to have this informal research based or facts based discussion where uh, even though all of us will have opinions, but those opinions are not essentially the drivers which form our opinions, like, or I would say, however we take any aspect of life to saying, oh no, because this is something I feel like, then like I will just take a decision based on that. But over to you to see if why you want to start this podcast and what are main drivers for you.
For me, driver was my last couple of visits back home. I got to interact with people that I've grown up with. लोग जो हैं वो बहुत लाइक रैंडम सोर्सेस से इंफॉर्मेशन कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं और लार्जली लाइक देयर इज अ ह्यूज सेगमेंट जो जिसको जो इंफॉर्मेशन जैसे मिल रही है वो उसको वैसे ही सच मान रहा है और यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम रुकता नहीं है, वो फिर उसकी बेस पे अपनी फ्यूचर डिसीजन मेकिंग कर रहा है जिसकी वजह से प्रॉब्लम जो है वो फर्दर इंक्रीज कर जाता है। और इस इंडिविजुअल चीज को अगर आप स्पैन कर लें कि ग्रुप्स के अंदर लोग या सोसाइटल लेवल पे इस तरह की चीज़ें हो रही हैं, तो उसकी वजह से फिर हमें एग्जांपल्स मिलती हैं कि जी फलाने ने सो एंड सो टुक सर्टेन डिसीजन बेस्ड ऑन स्पेशली मुझे फाइनेंशियल उसके ऊपर बहुत एग्जांपल्स हैं मेरे पास जहाँ पे लोगों ने लाइक मिनिमल इंफॉर्मेशन लेके उसके विदाउट मेकिंग एनी सेंस ऑफ इट उसके ऊपर एक्ट किया एंड दे एंडेड अप लूजिंग लाइक half of their savings or all of their savings in some cases. So फिर सेम गोज जो पॉलिटिकल सीन भी कुछ वैसा ही है। आप इंफॉर्मेशन कंज्यूम करते हो, आपके कुछ बायसेस हैं, आपको वहाँ से जो इंफॉर्मेशन मिल रही है जैसे मिल रही है आप उसको सच मान रहे हो और आगे प्रोपोगेट कर रहे हो, तो वो एक चीज़ जो है वो फिर कंपाउंडिंग इफेक्ट बनता जा रहा है और उसकी वजह से वो फिर रेडिकलाइजेशन भी आ रही है। बाकी और चीज़ें भी हैं जिसपे हम फर्दर इस चीज़ को एक्सपेंड करेंगे, बट लार्जली इंफॉर्मेशन की कंजम्पशन और उसके अंदर हम उसको लाइक किस तरह वी कैन make sense out of it or attach something logical to it like a number to make comparisons about how things work in rest of the world। और फिर हम देख सकते हैं कि यार अच्छा मुझे ये चीज़ पता लग रही है कि क्या ये ऐसे ही होती है या इज इट लाइक इसमें कोई चीज़ ऑफ है, तो वो चीज़ किस तरह थिंकिंग, क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग किसी चीज़ के ऊपर करनी है, या उसके साथ आपने कोई उसको न्यूमेरिकली एनालाइज करना है। तो आई थिंक उस एंगल से आई वाज लुकिंग के वी कुड पुट सम कंटेंट आउट, और yeah, we'll expand further on the topic, but I'll
Oh,
let
yeah.
Mariam speak on that.
Okay, so I think one of the biggest driving force for all three of us is we all know each other for half a decade at this point, or we have been quote unquote torturing the people around us because we sit down and we talk about everything, and then we go deep into those conversations where all three of us really wants to know what's out there. And I think for me that was an interesting point because I was talking to people who want to talk with facts and research. And in my last, during my last visit to Pakistan, I realized कि हमारी biases जो हैं वो intelligent नहीं रही हैं, and they are just becoming something so reactive. और हम हर चीज़ पे जो जिस तरीके से भी हम इंफॉर्मेशन कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं, हम उसको ऑब्जर्व करने का टाइम नहीं ले रहे, और हम रिएक्ट ज़्यादा तेज़ी से कर रहे हैं, जो कि 20 साल पहले शायद ये पैटर्न्स नहीं थे जब हम न्यूज़ कंज्यूम करते थे या हम इंफॉर्मेशन कंज्यूम करते थे, क्योंकि हमारे पास टाइम होता था. Which definitely has a huge impact as a society, क्योंकि अब हमारी जो algorithm based bubbles हैं उससे निकल के हम एक societal bubbles create कर रहे हैं. हम बहुत I remember when we were growing up, we would very openly hang out with people with different political views or people with different kind of mindset, and they were all welcome at home and you would listen. Tolerance काफी ज़्यादा थी. Now that I see it, tolerance नहीं है, cancel culture बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया है, हर बंदे को different light से देखा जाता है just based on their views, and we are not ready to have a conversation that is backed by facts or research. That became something of a turning point for me, and when Tosif wanted to have this conversation that, okay, how do you feel about it? We do something about slice of life, whatever we experience, whatever people from our countries and just South Asian diaspora experience. Let's have that conversation and try to be more factual, more objective when we are communicating something. So I think that become for me a point where I was like, okay, let's do this.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so let's jump into our today's topic. So I wanna ask you guys, and I will start with myself as well. Like मुझे याद है कि जब as Mariam said, जब हम आप पाकिस्तान में थे, especially like maybe 20 years ago, internet wasn't as much common as it's today. So major news source TV था या newspaper था. I remember going to one of my uncle's shop and पूरा का पूरा newspaper from front to back पढ़ना. And then obviously like people, I have seen people discussing their opinions based on the news and editorial content, but it wasn't, I want to say, it wasn't as aggressive as it's today. Breaking news culture wasn't a thing, or at least I wasn't affected by it. Breaking news started when we started having other media channels, and I think it's unfair to say if it's a problem which is just limited to Pakistan. It came to Pakistan after success, after a huge success, I would say, because centralization and everything. So, and to be very honest, I love that, like having that geo bulletin after every 15 minutes with that like very catchy music, and then I think it was start of something. Okay, like, oh, breaking news, this happened, and then uh, you move on and you see different things. But then more, I want to jump to now. Last time when I was in Pakistan during COVID, I didn't know how misinformation is such a big thing, because I thought from my point of view, no, like if there's a and I was totally wrong. I thought कि आप जब disinformation देखोगे, it's very easy to catch. Like it might only work on few people, but then हर दिन on breakfast, my father would tell me something which would shock me. For example, one day he came and said, you know, these I won't name the events, but something to do with war between two countries. And I
Hmm.
think you can match the timeline. But then I was like, where did you read that? He said, it's on my Facebook. I said, but you can't trust everything you see on Facebook. He said, no. Why would somebody post something totally untrue on Facebook? So for me, a lot of people don't understand, and I'm not blaming them that not everything you consume on social media or internet channel is true. And I think the fake news is becoming very smart, and it's a huge problem. The technology is not to blame. The intent is to blame. Intent is was always there, but now they have more tools, and I think that's why you need to be more smart and you need to have more tools to encounter that. But I want to understand from you guys, you folks, like how disinform how you consume, specifically how you used to consume news, how you are consuming now, and how disinformation has affected you, if yes. So I will start with Mariam.
Sure. 20 years ago, I think, as you said, पीटीवी का 9 बजे वाला खबरनामा चलता था और वो इतना calming होता था कि I think I've never seen news being that calming in ages.
वो सुन के
और
नींद आती थी।
एग्जैक्टली वो सबकी नींद आती थी और वो अच्छी टाइमिंग थी 9 बजे था हम सबका बेड
Yeah.
टाइम होता था और स्कूल से पहले सोना होता था तो वी विल बी लाइक ये तो परफेक्ट है
8 to 80, 40, 8 to 8 to 45 drama dekho, then watch news and sleep.
या एग्जैक्टली तो वो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग एक्सपीरियंस था बट एक चीज जो मेरे घर में होती थी विच आई फील लाइक कि बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग प्रैक्टिस थी कि मेरे घर में अखबार आते होते थे और सुबह बाबा अखबार पढ़ते थे और पढ़ने के बाद ही वुड मार्क सम ऑफ द आर्टिकल्स तो जंग में जो है ना का कॉलम लिखे हुए होते थे और वो मार्क कर देते थे और फिर जब मैं आती थी तो आई विल नो कि अच्छा आई शुड रीड देम दे मस्ट बी इंटरेस्टिंग और फिर एट नाइट वी विल डिस्कस कि अच्छा हाउ आई फेल्ट अबाउट देम मुझे क्या लग रहा है कि किसकी बायस क्या है और क्या उस जमाने में ना बड़ी इंटेलिजेंट बायसेस होती थी कोई ब्लैटेंटली नहीं जो है ना पार्टीशन नहीं होती थी कोई आपको पता नहीं होता था unless or until you know that journalist you wouldn't know which party he's speaking for which side of the opinions he have तो वो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग एक्सपीरियंस था आप पढ़ते थे आप सोचते थे आप बोलते थे अच्छा यार ये चीज जो है ना इस तरह से चलती है fast forward before we get the private news India got the private news और मेरी नानी के घर पे जो है डिश टीवी था और वो मेरे लिए इतना फैसिनेटिंग था कि आपको एंटरटेनमेंट चैनल्स देखने की जरूरत ही नहीं है आप बस टीवी चैनल लगाओ और वो उसमें जो सेंसेशन वो क्रिएट करते थे और जो है द वे दे वुड टॉक अबाउट थिंग्स आई लाइक दिस इज peak entertainment and I think back in 2000s we started getting private channels or breaking news cycle as Ali said it was so thrilling and it was so amazing because we were getting introduced to something and suddenly we feel connected because हमें 15 मिनट के बाद एक न्यूज़ मिल रही है हमें पता चल रहा है क्या हो रहा है क्या नहीं हो रहा fast forward now अब लेट्स टॉक अबाउट अब मैं जिस तरह से न्यूज कंज्यूम करती हूँ मेरे मोस्टली इन लास्ट 20 years ट्रिगर जो है फॉर द बिगेस्ट न्यूज has always been Twitter, Facebook. You find the first news from there, like it's a breaking news comes from there, and then I go to the news articles, I go to the legacy media websites. I would try to check if there's an investigative piece, there's working stories. I'll try to go into it. Sometimes you don't find something like this for 15 to 20 minutes, which is very interesting because you will still keep getting updates on your phone. And for me, one of the most interesting thing that happened was back in 2014 when there was an attack on APS school Peshawar. And I remember getting that news through a WhatsApp message from a friend who is from Peshawar. And then I opened a news page and I was working. And every time I would go there, it would refresh itself and how the casualty numbers would increase. And I think for me, it was that first day it hit me how people could become just numbers and how fast the reaction would change. So I think Abhi recently, last year, I think Ali's dad was here and we all went for this dinner to this Pakistani restaurant and they had the news on. And in 30 minutes, all of us were depressed, like properly depressed because koi achhi khabar nahi thi. It was continuously bad news, bad news, bad news. And we were like, the restaurant should not put up news. And that has been an interesting experience in how the patterns has changed and over the years. What about you, Tosi?
फॉर मी जो 20 साल पहले की हम बात करें, फ्रैंकली उस टाइम पे हमारा कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं था न्यूज़ में। उस टाइम पे ये होता था कि न्यूज़ जो है वो ज़बरदस्ती हमारे कानों में पड़ जाती थी कि कोई और सुन रहा है तो हमें भी सुननी पड़ गई है, या कोई बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ होती थी तो पेरेंट्स आपको बता देते थे कि ये हो रहा है। उसमें भी हमारा शायद ही इंटरेस्ट होता था कि यार हो रहा है तो ठीक है, होने दो। लेकिन आई थिंक चीज़ें जो चेंज होना शुरू हुई वो जो 2007 में वो जब मुशर्रफ वाला सारा एपिसोड चला था विद लॉयर्स एंड एवरीथिंग, वहां से फिर जो है मैंने जो देखा बहुत सारे लोगों का फिर इंटरेस्ट बनना शुरू हुआ एक्चुअली न्यूज के अंदर, और फिर वो सारी जो है वो जिसे हम कहेंगे ना गेमिफिकेशन ऑफ न्यूज, वो होना शुरू हो गई, जिसके अंदर जो है वो आप जो है पॉलिटिशियंस के कार्टून्स चल रहे हैं तो आप आपस में एक दूसरे को लतीफ़े सुना रहे हैं, और वो एक कार्टून आया करता था जियो के ऊपर, आई डोंट रिमेम्बर द नेम, बट उसके अंदर वो डिफरेंट टॉपिक्स डिस्कस करते थे। देयर वाज एन एलिमेंट ऑफ कॉमेडी इन दैट। सो वो टाइम था जहाँ पे बेसिकली इंटरेस्ट बनना शुरू हुआ, एंड आई थिंक फिर उसके बाद एक मेजर जो टर्निंग पॉइंट था दैट वाज जो इमरान खान का जलसा था इन 2011 आई थिंक अक्टूबर वाला। तब हम यूनिवर्सिटी में थे और हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी बिल्कुल उसके साथ थी। आई थिंक मीनार पाकिस्तान में वो जलसा हो रहा था, और हमें वहाँ पे लाइक वी कुड फील कि यहाँ पे क्या चल रहा है। तो बेतहाशा लोगों की वहाँ से इन्वॉल्वमेंट शुरू होती है, और फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जो है वो पीटीआई इन पर्टिकुलर और पार्टीज भी रियलाइज करती हैं कि सोशल मीडिया इज लाइक एन इम्पोर्टेंट टूल या मीडियम, आप उसको द वे यू लुक एट इट। तो उन्होंने उसको चैनलाइज करना शुरू किया। फिर आई थिंक उसकी मेनली सोशल मीडिया जब took over as being the news platforms, I think वहाँ से जो है वो पोलराइजेशन होना शुरू हुई, और वो चीज़ जो है वो टाइम के साथ साथ एम्पलीफाई करती गई। And now we are here जहाँ पे biases are so apparent, like even you can name whichever journalist and I can tell you कि ये like what is he thinking or what does he think, वो है। और जो न्यूज़ की वैल्यू है जिसके अंदर आपने बेसिकली ऑब्जेक्टिवली किसी चीज़ को देखना है, वो कम से कम होती जा रही है, होती रही है पीछे। और न्यूज़ कंजम्पशन में मेरा खुद लार्जली ये था कि आप हमारे भी ऑब्वियसली बाइसेस किसी पॉइंट पे थे, मे बी चेंज हुए होंगे, लेकिन हमारा भी एक सर्कल बन गया था जहाँ से हम न्यूज़ कंज्यूम करते थे। लेकिन ओवर टाइम फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता आप रियलाइज करते हो। तो मेरा लार्जली वही था, मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया कंज्यूम करना अप अंटिल 2018, वो जब आई थिंक 2018 वाज द इलेक्शन दैट इमरान खान वन, राइट? हाँ, तो दैट एंड उसके बाद से फिर कुछ चीज़ें जो हैं वो आप रियलाइज करते हो और आप देखते हो कि यार ये तो कुछ चीज़ें सेंस नहीं बना रही। तो आई थिंक 2018 onwards पाकिस्तान में specifically I started reading Dawn and I used to mute like everything else. Like Dawn news channel नहीं, but Dawn
Newspaper.
newspaper.
Mhm.
तो उससे फिर आप मेरे लाइक एटलीस्ट इन माय केस बहुत सारे मेरे जो ओपिनियंस और पर्सपेक्टिव हैं वो चेंज हुए और फिर मैंने रियलाइज़ किया कि जो चीज़ें हमें बताई जा रही होती हैं रियलिटी जो है वो उससे बहुत डीप होती है और बहुत ब्रॉड होती है, चीज़ें इतनी जो हैं वो ब्लैक एंड वाइट में नहीं होती। तो दैट वाज बेसिकली माय coming of age with news. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So I think the takeaway is कि पाकिस्तान में अगर even if we go above from individual journalists, you can just name a news channel or organization and you can tell like what the you can ask someone कि आप कौन सा news channel use करते हो to watch news and then you can just or at least I can tell okay
Yeah.
I think you're a follower of this particular party or ideology even though to be very honest sometimes I would watch in Pakistan I would like for example just two names I would if I'm watching ARY and if I see something believe me I used to switch immediately to Geo just to say if the story like how much difference of opinion is there
मतलब
so
अगर
I am
दोनों कह रहे हैं तो ठीक होगा।
agar dono keh rahe hain
दोनों कह रहे
like
थे।
then you find the common ground okay that common ground is something I can
वर्क ऑन।
work on
हाँ,
right
बिल्कुल नहीं, I agree.
Related to this topic, I want to discuss के political style और comedy का क्योंकि as we discuss के news को गेमिफाई किया गया उसके साथ एक बहुत बड़ा इकोनॉमिकल बेनिफिट लगाया गया और किस तरह आई वांट टू आस्क के आप लोग पॉलिटिकल स्टाइल को किस तरह से कंज्यूम करते हो लाइक लोकली पाकिस्तान से या बाहर से एंड हाउ मच did that affect in especially in Pakistan? I remember like for me, Habernak was one of the very major source. I used to watch it for comedy, but then later on I realized, oh no, it's not just comedy. Like it's
Yeah.
hitting my mental methodology where I'm thinking about few things and like somebody would say something in a joke, but then back of my mind I will keep that as a fact. So I want to ask both of you, how does it affect you?
Yeah, for me, political satire has always been very interesting because very intelligent way of changing opinions. और मुझे याद है कि Geo was sort of pioneer for it. They did हम सब उम्मीद से और Sabaa Qamar, the famous Pakistani
Yeah.
actress, her career started from there. और वो बड़ा interesting किस्म का show होता था and that kind of is being talked as something that was supposed to increase people's tolerance of different opinions and आपके जो है politicians are not higher than the mighty and stuff like that. Um, which of course changed over time. I found different political comedians internationally. There are few in India that I really almost religiously follow. One of them is Kunal Kamra. His comedy is amazing. Aapke paas Varun Grover, he does really good stuff. Then I started watching a Western political satire. आपके पास ये जो late night shows होते हैं, daily shows होते हैं, and I was fine. I was living my best life, and I was watching all of this. I was going to the shows, and I was like, ये तो बेहतरीन हो गई है जिंदगी. अब I know how to do intelligent comedy. Few years ago, जब यूक्रेन रशिया वॉर स्टार्ट हुई, I turned on Daily Show and Stephen was doing his monologue. And I think it's not something I'm just making a statement here. Most of them do identify as liberals, and they do very openly say that they are, in one way or another, endorse a Democratic Party. They've been known to have sensitivity and the way they address people. And he was doing his monologue, and in his monologue, he's talking about war where people are being killed, and the way he was laughing about it, and the way every sentence would add into oh, I'm gonna do this punch, and then he would say, oh, but bad days. It's really sad that it's happening. But he keep on cracking those jokes, and there's no sensitivity to that material. And I've seen political comedian in our side of the world having that sensitivity when they are addressing these issues. That cured me out of it. Now, at best, I would go and watch Hassan Minaj and listen to like 20 minutes of set where he's just giving me information. I'll be okay with it. But if that suddenly shift to I'm gonna be sympathetic to these people, I don't buy it. Now I just don't. I can't. It just something that happened to me that political satire for me suddenly changed to how much misery of somebody is laugh worthy. Because there's a very thin line between sympathizing with people and being able to empathize with people. And you realize how political satire in Western media is crossing that line like it's nothing. And you feel that because a lot of people who are dying in these wars look like us. So that started to trigger me to a point that I'll be like, okay, I'm going to take my space and I'm going to just operate a little bit more carefully when I'm looking at political satire. And as Ali said, it does form opinions.
Yeah. So step back.
Yeah.
Is it just Stephen Colbert or the other ones too? Like the idea in general, you have a
I
problem
think
with?
I became more critical um, as compared to before. Before, I would treat it as okay, it's funny and it's comedy, and I'm gonna just do it. That day, I think it changed something that okay, I can't take it as something that's just comedy because they also because we interact with a lot of people here, right? And I realize that a lot of people do not watch news or even not through social media. They literally watch this an hour episode to get their news. Like people are watching Trevor Noah or John Oliver to get their news of the day. And that kind of was like, oh, that's interesting because I'm just treating it as comedy.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's
Yeah.
important to have diversity as kind of like a fact check. So I want to ask the same question to Sif as well to see if like how do you take it?
हाँ लाइक मेरा भी स्टार्ट में वही था आई थिंक हम सब उम्मीद से हैं वाज द लाइक द ओरिजिन ऑफ इट ऑल
Mhm.
मे बी उससे पहले भी आई थिंक वो शो हुआ करते थे वो जो द वन दैट मोइन अख्तर एंड
The OG,
अनवर
yeah.
Yeah.
मकसूद used to do.
Sadly, I only watched them as like recorded ones.
Yeah,
Much
same.
later, yeah.
But
नहीं
that's
मैं
intelligent
वो जो
political satire.
जब लाइव आते थे मुझे तब उसके कुछ एपिसोड्स याद हैं बल्कि
Hmm.
उससे पहले भी इफ यू रिमेम्बर पीटीवी के टाइम पे वो स्टूडियो 2:45 स्टूडियो 2:30 वगैरह अगर तुम लोगों ने
Hmm.
देखा हुआ
Mhm.
so yeah but again like मेन जो कमर्शलाइजेशन थी और जो मेन स्ट्रीम चीज हुई थी दैट वाज विद वो जो हम सब उम्मीद से हैं आता था और फिर उसके बाद आई थिंक आई वाज लाइक फॉर अ व्हाइल आई वॉच्ड ये जो शोज थे लाइक हस्बे हाल वगैरह
Mhm.
बट उसके बाद वो सारी चीज बहुत मोनोटोनस हो गई थी लाइक देयर वाज like 10 shows running on every channel.
Yeah.
तो like वो बिल्कुल ही टॉलरेट नहीं कर सकते थे आप लाइक आपने एक
Yeah.
एपिसोड देख लिया तो आपको पता है वही जो है वो चीज़ें रिपीट हो रही हैं सेम जोक्स एंड एवरीथिंग या बट उसके बाद फिर and I think it was around the time when Trump came in 2016 and all
Mhm.
of these comedians of course had a field day. They had like 4 years of crazy amount of material and stuff
Yeah.
that they could
Content.
joke about. So वहाँ पे फिर मैंने जो है ये लेट नाइट शोज जॉन ऑलिवर वगैरह इन लोगों का कंटेंट देखना शुरू किया आई थिंक उसके अंदर वो जो मरियम ने बात की थी आई थिंक like when Stephen Colbert was making those jokes, I think we know what he wanted to project, right?
Yeah.
उसके लिए उसने सिर्फ टूल जो है वो कॉमेडी यूज किया था सो
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's actually good. Because that is the way how you involve more and more people into the conversation who otherwise might be indifferent, right? They may not have interest in that topic. हाँ, शुरू के शायद 10 शोज में जो है ना, वो उसको सिर्फ कॉमेडी समझेंगे, लेकिन 11वें शो 12वें शो में जाके वो सोचेंगे कि यार ये बात इसने पहले भी की थी और ये बार बार कर रहा है, तो मे बी ही they start making sense out of it, right? So I think कि वो वो चीज अच्छी है, और वो हमने इंडिया में भी देखी है। जो इंडियन कॉमेडियंस हैं, कुणाल कामरा, वरुण ग्रोवर वगैरह, उन लोगों के जो लाइक उनके जो मैंने how I discovered them was through like small clips, like 10 second 20 second clips, जो मुझे तो अब obviously आपको 10 second 20 second में context थोड़ी समझ आता है। तो then you go to their channel or YouTube or whatever and you find the whole thing, और फिर आप उसको देखते हो, फिर आप हाँ obviously उनका like they are OG comedians, उनका stuff तो अच्छा है, but then you actually get to सी द मीट ऑफ द कंटेंट कि एग्जैक्टली यार कहना क्या चाह रहा है, और फिर आपको पता लगता है कि नहीं यार ये चीज़ तो सही है। एंड जो मीडियम वो यूज़ कर रहे हैं, आई थिंक इट्स अ ग्रेट वे टू पेनिट्रेट इन द टू द पीपल जो अदरवाइज माइट नॉट बी इंटरेस्टेड। आई थिंक पाकिस्तान में जो ताबिश अब शो कर रहा है, उसमें देर इज ऑल अगेन an element of this. Of course, there is comedy, but then again, he raises some pertinent points here and there. Uh, तो उसमें politically भी political satire भी होता है, बाकी और societal issues raise करना, वो सारी चीज़ भी मैंने उसके again I do not watch it regularly, but here and there I'll find a clip, और उसके अंदर आपको like interesting content है,
Okay.
मज़ेदार।
So I think the important point to note that responsibility is important. Like even when you're doing it for comedy, or you're projecting yourself like as a comedy content, and then there is something which is, because I will give one example. So I have some friends from Brazil, and during their last election when Bolsonaro won, he told me that one of the major source of disinformation was actually a meme culture. And for me it was very new. I was like, how, like meme as in like videos, like video memes? Or because for me an image is kind of like not that harmful, which can form opinion. So then one of my friend who is very political and is very like, I adore him for like his political methodology. So he showed me the whole thing, like where people would send those meme images in WhatsApp groups where they will slowly form opinions. And I think that's where that Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal also, like that's related as well to the same thing, where they got that data which they related with people, and then they had that formed opinion with like very close groups using those memes. So I think the message I want to pass is एज द एग्जांपल विद ताबिश के कॉमेडी करो, अच्छा कंटेंट दो, बट उसके साथ अगर थोड़ी फाइन लाइन रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी भी हो, दैट वर्क्स वेरी वेल. बट मूविंग ऑन, आई थिंक we discussed Pakistan well enough. So we see the problems, but we also want to see if there is a good example to it, or how the things are around the world. So let's jump into global and like local news comparison. We want to see how it operates to global north and global south. Like how does comparisonly, if you guys have any research or um, some factual figures to how people consume news outside of Pakistan, especially consider like much more developed nation where people have better access, or like if that's something a driving factor where जो लोगों को information मिल रही है, like if they're using more mature formats, if they're using or relying on much more reliable sources. So I will start with you, Tasif.
हाँ, कुछ तो ऑब्वियसली ट्रेंड्स और पैटर्न्स हम सब ने देखे हैं, और वो काफ़ी अपेरेंट हैं कि इंक्रीजिंगली ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग जो हैं वो लाइक सोशल मीडिया की तरफ ट्रेंड है. आई थिंक देयर इज़ अ लाइक among the TikTok users, I think कोई like 30 around 31 or 32% used to uh, use it for news, but now it is up, like in a year it has gone up to 43%. So इस तरह के ट्रेंड्स हैं जहाँ पे लोग like the mainstream media is taking a back seat or social media
Yeah.
has taken the front seat.
Which I think very much aligns with Pakistan. I think more than 40% users are on, like, have access to internet and consuming news in Pakistan.
हाँ, पाकिस्तान में स्टिल अभी वो है कि पाकिस्तान में भी इंटरनेट की पेनिट्रेशन जो है वो ठीक-ठाक है, बट स्टिल पाकिस्तान इज समवट बिहाइंड ड्यू टू लैकिंग टेलीकम्युनिकेशन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर या जो भी उसके मे बी देयर आर अदर रीजंस.
Mm.
बट अगेन दिस थिंग इज लाइक अ डायरेक्ट फंक्शन ऑफ कि कितने लोगों के पास इंटरनेट है, फिर उसमें से कितने लोग हैं जो सोशल मीडिया कंज्यूम, वेल इंटरनेट अगर किसी के पास है तो वो सोशल मीडिया तो कंज्यूम कर ही
Yeah.
रहा है. सो वो है, और इंक्रीजिंगली जो है वो लाइक इवन विथ फेसबुक एंड ट्विटर देयर वाज लाइक sometimes, so there was this possibility of communicating context with like the content could be large enough, right?
Mm.
बट ये जो टिकटॉक और इंस्टाग्राम और इन सब की वजह से, आई थिंक इवन विद ट्विटर नाउ अलाउज मोर देन अ सर्टेन नंबर ऑफ कैरेक्टर्स. जब वो नहीं था, पीपल स्टार्टेड डूइंग ट्विटर थ्रेड्स एंड एवरीथिंग, बट
Mm.
विद लाइक ये जो बाकी बाद में मीडियाज आए हैं ग्राफिक्स के लिए, इंस्टाग्राम, पिंटरेस्ट वगैरह, और especially TikTok with these very short videos,
Short
and then
videos. Yeah.
YouTube
Yeah.
trying to compete with शॉर्ट्स, उस सब के अंदर वो टाइम इतना स्क्वीज हो गया है कि उसके वो बाय डिजाइन ही मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन के लिए, उससे इंफॉर्मेशन आ ही नहीं सकती. लाइक हाउ कैन यू स्क्वीज समथिंग डाउन टू लाइक अ 10-second क्लिप,
Mm.
राइट? और लार्जली अब लोग जो हैं वो हम विद जो हम लोगों ने ग्रोथ देखी है टिकटॉक की, इनसेन ग्रोथ, that means people is getting addicted to that kind of content. फिर यार मुझे तुम भाड़ में गई न्यूज, भाड़ में गया कॉन्सेप्ट, तुम मुझे अगला क्लिप दिखाओ, राइट? फिर जस्ट एंडलेसली स्क्रॉलिंग. और उसके अंदर भी ये है कि एज लॉन्ग एज ठीक है आप you're watching dance videos and those kind of things, it's fine, but the moment you, and that's how the algorithms work, right? The moment you go into like a rabbit hole of things, then you start seeing like the same kind of content. So वो जो reinforcement loop बनता है, उससे फिर आपके opinions बनना शुरू हो जाते हैं, and they, और वो खाली बनते नहीं, वो strengthen होना शुरू हो जाते हैं, and then after a while आप उस चीज के ऊपर इतने पक्के हो जाते हो. और अगेन इसमें वो देयर इज एन एलिमेंट ऑफ echo chamber एज वेल, क्योंकि आपको उन्हीं लोगों का कंटेंट नजर आ रहा है जो
Yeah.
सेम काइंड ऑफ कंटेंट कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं, जनरेट कर रहे हैं, तो
And I
आपको
think वो
लगता है
जो
कि सारी दुनिया
algorithms,
मेरे जैसी सोच रही है.
yeah, I think वो जो algorithms भी हैं, they do recognize this,
Yeah.
or obviously they want to show you something which keeps you engaging. Engagement is one of the major KPI for them.
या
So
सो
yeah.
आई थिंक उसकी एक बहुत बड़ी एग्जांपल है ये जो हम लाइक वी डिड, हमने ये लफ्ज पहले नहीं सुना था, इन्फ्लुएंसर क्या होता,
Yeah.
right? So all of a sudden there are influencers who are bigger than the celebrities,
Mhm.
right?
They are.
Mr. Beast, for instance, has 250 million subscribers or something, right? So आज के टाइम में Mr. Beast can actually compete with mainstream businesses if he wants to, right? So again वो सारी चीज ड्राइव हो रही है. there is a clear shift. Mainstream media जो is basically dying, digital media is taking over. उसके जो problems हैं वो हमें नजर आ रहे हैं. उसके लिए क्या हो सकता है? well people are out of ideas. we ourselves might be out of ideas, but I think we can come back to it later.
So one follow-up question before we go to Mariam.
Mhm.
Do you still think legacy media at some point is still comparatively more managed and better source of news for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Okay.
हाँ
Okay.
हाँ
So
क्योंकि
even with
मैं उसके ऊपर ऐड इस तरह से, क्योंकि लाइक इवन अगर आप जो पाकिस्तान में जर्नलिस्ट देख लो ना, जो यूट्यूब पे चले गए हैं, ठीक है, देयर प्रोसेस
yeah,
जहाँ पे उनको इंफॉर्मेशन मिलेगी और वो फिर न्यूज़ बनेगी, इन दोनों इवेंट्स के बीच में जो गार्ड रेल्स हैं और जो फ्रिक्शन है वो इतनी रिड्यूस हो गई है कि गार्बेज इन गार्बेज आउट वाला सीन है,
Yeah.
ठीक है।
yeah,
तो लेकिन जो न्यूज़पेपर्स हैं उसमें स्टिल वो जो एडिटर और बीच में जो एंटिटीज है जिन फिल्टर से न्यूज़ ने गुजरना है, और वहां से एबिलिटी है कि वो फेक न्यूज़ और ये बहुत सारी चीजें काउंटर हो
yeah.
जाएंगी, दैट इज स्टिल देयर विद द
That
मेनस्ट्रीम।
process is still better, and I think
Mm.
their behavior changes when you watch them on their own YouTube channel
Mhm.
versus when you watch them on legacy media. So moving on to you, Mariam, and I want you to add one extra thing with it, which is for you, how much you rely on. So being more specific with you, how much you rely on these social media platform for news engagement, and how much you rely on legacy media. For example, I have a very specific pattern where for something like, for example, if some chaos is happening in Pakistan, I'm okay to just watch videos on social media platform. But if we want to watch something, for example, what's the outcome of one assembly session, or
साबिर
like
शाकिर।
yeah, very good example. So I will go to legacy media. So I think that explains like which I trust more and which I am casually viewing. So, but I want to ask you, like, how does it work for you?
Yeah, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about from the way you asked me, and also want to add something to what Tausif said. Is give for me, I think trigger is definitely social media. मतलब news तो break वहीं से होती है.
Hmm.
Also, I'm from Balochistan, so it generally takes a longer time for legacy media to start publishing anything about it. Or we all know how the security situation is there. So usually it happens is to find the first news from
वहां पे इनके ऑफिसेज भी हैं वैसे कि नहीं?
हैं ऑफिसेस हैं कोयटा में है आई थिंक बाकी जगहों पे दे हैव कॉरेस्पॉन्डेंट्स बट ये कि आपके पास सीन ये होता है कि मोस्टली आपको जो फर्स्ट रिस्पोंडेंट न्यूज़ मिलती है वो होती है ट्विटर से आप इफ यू गो ऑन ट्विटर यू कैन फाइंड people from like Dera Bukti, and then you find from like Baloch belt, Barawi belt and Pashtun belt, and you can see हर बंदा वहां से वो कर रहा होता है. अब उसमें मसला ये है कि bots बहुत ज्यादा हैं, so you have to learn to filter and find people जो कि या some of them I personally know, so I know them कि अच्छा यार ये जो post कर रहे हैं there's a good chance of it being authentic and I should make phone calls to home and check up on people and see everything. सो या सो मेरे लिए मोस्टली ट्रिगर जो होता है ब्रेकिंग न्यूज का वो अब ट्विटर होता है, पहले किसी जमाने में फेसबुक होता था. I think what I have found very interesting is there are two reports. One is Pew Research Center's report, and the other one is Reuters' report. And Reuters' report basically says कि जो अब लोग जो न्यूज आर्टिकल पढ़ते हैं, they do not read it. At max 50 seconds people spend on the article.
Yeah, sometimes they just
And
rely on headlines as well.
exactly, or they just skim through it and go for like kya cheezein bold hain, kya numbers hain, things like that. And for video it's 10 seconds. So I understand at the same time why every other social media platform is targeting people with those short clips, because आपके attention spans कम हो गए. There's also an interesting comparison of how traditional media or give you out news is. They're like, okay, what you should know and what are the facts, while आपके पास जो Gen Z and millennials हैं, they don't want to just know what they should know. They want to know what is interesting, what's fun to know, and what is important to know. So वो जो चीज है that minimize the actual context of the information. क्योंकि now you are trying to pack this information for somebody who wouldn't be interested in knowing all the context. I was, I think, a couple of weeks ago, I was at my aunt's place and I was hanging out with my cousins who are like, they have ages from like 22 to 16. And they all get their news from TikTok. And they were giving me such detailed information about P. Diddy and the whole thing that happened during this. I don't even know who that guy is. And after like talking to them, I went into like the deep dive of it and I saw the podcast and everything. And I talked to them and I was like, which podcast did you listen to, or which like news you read? And they're like, there was no, like, we don't go to news sites. We just saw it on TikTok and they like know these things, which is very interesting to me. And I think that's also something that I saw in the different surveys lately happen is कि आपके पास जो Gen Z का pattern है, it's really moving towards TikTok. They really get their news from there. They're very visual. They don't want to read. And that's why I think Twitter is not something that they are really too much into it, which currently known as X. There's another thing that I found really interesting is that 78% of men consume their news from Reddit. And
Yeah,
I
I
want to
do.
know both of your opinions about it.
I think I'm part of that percentage. Yeah, I'm
Reddit
consuming.
is a terrible place for news.
I do. Anyhow, but now, recently Reddit has just become kind of like a scraper for Google. Like it just like it used to be. So I remember World News used to break news
Yeah, they did
from
actually.
way
They
before
actually did a
Reddit.
contract. Like
Yeah.
they are like Google is paying some X amount of money to
Yeah, so
them.
now as with like all other platforms, X having all those issues, and so Reddit is definitely seeing that downward trends. But I think, and I think mm, personally, I acknowledge, even though if I don't like or prefer, we can conclude that social media is the king now, especially short videos, and that's something we have to live with it, right? So considering that, and considering the current unrest in Pakistan, where social media, we can argue that, but maybe as a summary, it is playing a very crucial role. X is banned. Uh, Maybe legacy. The reason is being the legacy media, and especially in Pakistan, it's much more controlled. People have almost, especially new generation, I think they don't have much trust left
Yeah.
in legacy media, right? So what do you think, like, considering all the dopamine factor, like how easy is to propagate the misinformation or fake news with social media, but there is an other side, which is you can relate more to people. You can say that there is no filtering process, because filtering can work good or bad way. So how do you see that side? Like, do you think it's playing a little bit of positive role in Pakistan when it's becoming more and more kind of a police state where you get legacy news which totally negate to what reality is, or maybe that gap is becoming more and more wider? So how does that contrast fits into Pakistan?
I think I agree with you that we can talk like all day about the problems that social media and the news that we get digitally has, and it has its problems. But at the same time, I feel like in last couple of years, everybody is interested in news, especially the youth. Like हमने अपनी बात की, we weren't like
Yeah.
that interested. We talk about PTV news as like calming factor and things like that. But if you talk to
Yeah, I mean, how many times did we care which amendment is happening? Now people do.
exactly,
Yeah.
people do, and they want to talk about it. They want to have a conversation about it. They want to know. They sort of do know कि कौन से parliament members किस side पे swing कर जाएंगे. Like the way they have this conversation is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Even आपके पास कुछ भी होता है. Like in last couple of years, we have seen the femicide cases and rape cases. The way your millennials and Gen Z have been protesting, they've been talking about it. एक जनरल अवेयरनेस है, लोग उस बारे में डिटेल में बात कर रहे हैं. आपके पास कुछ डेफिनेटली आपके पास अगर एक 100 का सैंपल सेट है, उसमें से अगर 80% लोग बात कर रहे हैं, तो एटलीस्ट I'm not going to be too optimistic about it, but let's say अगर 20% भी उसके बारे में सोच रहे हैं, इट्स गुड परसेंटेज कि आपकी यूथ इन चीजों के ऊपर, इन प्रॉब्लम्स के ऊपर सोच रही है. फिर वो आपके पॉलिटिशियंस को टफ टाइम भी देगी. जब वो आएंगे, कैंपेन करेंगे, तो दे विल आस्क देम द रियल questions. They are not going to let go of things because you said it. Like, I know a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I know who are like young adults or are in their teenage. For them now, they don't let politicians get away with sexist or racist remarks. They
Yeah.
hold on to it. They
Yeah, the
really hold on
accountability
to
is
it.
it's amazing.
Yeah, the accountability is really high. Like financial aspects, like they don't forget
And we
these
have
things.
seen legislators or politicians reacting to that like criticism and reaction on the
Yeah,
social media, and we have seen people like those legislation taken back, or like a very strong reaction action which has led into, I think, a positive effect of those social media concerns people have raised.
definitely. For me, that's definitely one of the reasons that I think that social media is making a positive impact, and that it's giving people voices and giving them awareness. Um, we can agree to disagree with the opinions they could have, but it is giving them a platform to have opinions, form opinions. How
Okay.
do you feel about that, Fasif?
बट ये चीज़ मैं लाइक इससे रिलेटेड जो मेरे माइंड में चीज़ आ रही है वो ये है कि लाइक ये तो पाकिस्तान की सिचुएशन है ना कि पाकिस्तान की सोसाइटी में अदरवाइज इस तरह की चीज़ें जो हैं वो प्रॉब्लम है, राइट?
Mm-hmm.
बट वेस्ट में ऐसा नहीं है, तो क्या लाइक उस केस में जो वेस्ट में हम देख रहे हैं, इज इट अ कनेरी इन अ कोल माइन जो हमें बेसिकली बता रही है कि पाकिस्तान में इन द कमिंग ईयर्स क्या होगा? क्योंकि
But to some extent, West has same issue as well. For example,
I feel that.
just go to states, ask who watches CNN and who watches Fox News. So it's kind of a very resonating thing to
हाँ
geo and
एग्जैक्टली
airway discussion.
हाँ नहीं, मैं वही कह रहा हूँ कि हमने वेस्ट के अंदर ये चीज़ देखी है कि चीज़ें बाय डिज़ाइन इस तरह की हैं कि पोलराइजेशन इंक्रीज होगी।
Mm-hmm.
उसकी सबसे बड़ी एग्जांपल ये है कि तुम लोग अगर तुम लोगों को टाइम मिले ना तो लाइक 2000 और 2004 में जो इनकी प्रेसिडेंशियल डिबेट्स थी ना, वो उसका लाइक कोई छोटे मोटे क्लिप्स अगर नजर आए ना तो वो देखना कि वो कितना आप जनाब करके बात कर रहे हैं, और
Yeah,
आज आप वो इमेजिन ही नहीं कर सकते।
yeah, for sure,
वही
yeah.
रिपब्लिकन है, वही डेमोक्रेट्स हैं,
Yeah, so
राइट?
that fabric is like West में भी वो fabric अब काफी हद तक damage हो चुका है. Like I think the last vice president debate was much more civil than the
Presidential one.
yeah. So I think that yeah, they definitely have their own issues. Yeah,
वो
but
तो मैंने
please
सुनी भी नहीं।
continue. I watched
The
some of it.
president, yeah,
Yeah,
me too. I watched a little
yeah.
bit of
It's
it.
I think it's fun.
हम्म
To be very okay, I'm not gonna lie. It gives me this kind of satisfaction that yeah, we are not only country who is in
I
going
agree.
grave. So
ओके,
anyhow, you continue to say.
तुम चाहते हो कि सबके बेड़े गर्क
No,
होते देखना चाहते हो तुम?
मैं ये चाहता हूँ कि
मैं
ये कलेक्टिव
अकेले ना हूँ.
प्रॉब्लम है. मैं ये चाहता हूँ कि ये कलेक्टिव प्रॉब्लम है जिसका एक कलेक्टिव सोल्यूशन आ सकता है. Because if this is only a unique issue to Pakistan, believe me, we might not even see fix for that in near future. So that divide, that polarization, I think it's a very common pattern around the world. But obviously, then we take everything, any problem from outside the world, and then we amplify it in Pakistan. Because I think our policymaker, they tend to be not very uh, informed. They still make decision with the same old 100 years old methodologies, like call all the issues in US or other states, but like you can still go to legacy media and say whatever you feel about your current president.
Yeah.
You can do that in Pakistan, right? So they do have their own fair share of issues, but it's nowhere an apple to apple comparison with Pakistan.
Do you think it has increased over time,
Yeah, for sure,
like
for
in
sure.
Pakistan,
Oh, in Pakistan,
or we never had that
I
freedom to talk about the people? Like I feel like politicians were never in Pakistan were uh, holier.
so you
Like I
remember
feel
that
like.
you remember that discussion on things being presidented or not
Mhm,
presidented, right? So I think even this topic is very much controversial. Like you go
yeah.
to people, you talk and say, "Oh, like what's happening with politician in Pakistan, especially like for
Mhm,
past 1 or 2 years." People will say, "Yeah, but this has been happening ever since, right?" And then there
mhm,
is another side which says, "Oh no, we have never seen um, establishment going that much against one particular party with that much open agenda, right?"
Blatantly, yeah.
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 So I think for me, to be very honest, I'm very confused with where we are right now in Pakistan,
Mhm,
because even when you want to comprehend what's happening, has it like if there is some relevance to it in the history, people will just say, "Oh no, like again, you are in your own echo chamber." So even when I talk with my elders, parents, they tend to have very limited opinion with what they believe. For example, just discuss what happened during 1971.
yeah.
You like, have we ever, I think it's one of the, maybe this topic can be another like episode, but we have never learned from history. We never share what actually happened. Part of that is like we did all those good investigation, Mahmoud Urman commission or whatnot, but have we ever published them? So at least West recognize what went wrong with them.
Mhm,
We never do. We never. But I want to move on with our topic, and I want to, as a takeaway, I want both of you to discuss, uh, considering these social media platform as being reality, they're gonna here to stay. Their adoption might actually go higher than downward. So, what do you suggest? How can people avoid disinformation, or if there is anything specific which you do? What's your personal experience on this?
Right. So what has worked for me is to always cross check. Um, a lot of the times, like I am sitting in front of the computer. The nature of job is such, so it takes like 2 seconds to Google, like just write 4 words, hit the news tab, and you will know कि क्या है. Like आपको headline से ही पता लग जाएगा largely, right?
Mhm.
तो एक तो वो है, दूसरी चीज ये है कि आई थिंक इट डिपेंड्स ऑन हु यू फॉलो ऑन सोशल मीडिया. डिपेंडिंग ऑन द काइंड ऑफ पीपल यू फॉलो, आपको द मोमेंट वो न्यूज़ मिलेगी, तो वो उसी टाइम पे अगर वो फेक न्यूज़ है तो वो डिबंक भी हो चुकी होगी, राइट? बट ये अगेन वो विशस या वर्चुअस साइकिल है,
Mhm.
डिपेंडिंग ऑन के हु डू यू फॉलो. अगर आपने लाइक आप दूसरे टेंजेंट पे जा रहे हैं तो फिर आपको वो न्यूज़ मिलेगी और वो 1 घंटे के अंदर इतनी एम्पलीफाई हो जाएगी ना कि वो अब आपकी रियलिटी है.
Mhm.
अब देयर इज नो गोइंग बैक. अब आपको ये वही है, एक बंदे का अगर उसने कह दिया ना कि कौवा सफेद है, तो बस फिर आप अपना बस्ता पैक करें और कौवा सफेद है, कहानी खत्म है.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
यू कांट डू
How
मच.
how about you, Mariam?
आई थिंक दो स्टोरीज हैं इससे रिलेटेड. एक तो खैर इट्स नॉट इवन अ स्टोरी, इट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग केस स्टडी जो कि फिनलैंड की है. बैक इन 2014 जब रशिया ने क्रीमिया को जो है एनेक्स किया और दे बैक सम यूक्रेनियन रेबल्स. उस टाइम पे फिनलैंड decided to do this thing कि they realized, which is just a Scandinavian thing, is कि वो threat को जरा पहले देख लेते हैं कि अब जो भी होगी वॉर वो इंफॉर्मेशन और डिजिटल होगी. So they got like their best of researchers and academics and politicians to sit down and come up with a policy to combat misinformation. और इस टाइम नो बडी इज यंग इनफ, सो आप अगर फिर 5-6 साल का बच्चा स्कूल भेज रहे हैं तो दे विल टीच देम हाउ टू क्रिटिकली थिंक. एंड देर टीचिंग देम कि आपके पास एक स्टैटिस्टिशियन किस तरह से जो है वो सेम फिगर्स को अपने नैरेटिव के साथ बता सकता है. या आप अगर कोई स्टोरी पढ़ रहे हैं तो उस स्टोरी में अगर कोई कुछ कह रहा है, बड़ी जैसे वो स्टोरीज होती थी जिसमें एक बड़ा खुशामदी सा बंदा होता है और वो बड़ी बातें कर रहा होता है, तो आपने किस तरह से उसको आइडेंटिफाई करना है. Which basically what happened is कि 10 like years now, um, they have been on 75% on their media literacy. Like they have the highest media literacy in Europe out of all 35 countries, which is amazing. आपके पास the more you equip people, the more it happens. But I understand कि आपके पास that requires a whole framework. The people need to realize, the policymakers need to realize all these things. What I do on a personal level is something. Alex Shafak हैं, टर्किश राइटर हैं, उनसे किसी ने कोविड के दौरान में एक इंटरव्यू किया था एंड दे आस्क्ड कि हाउ यू डीलिंग विद मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन, क्योंकि उस टाइम पे काफी ज्यादा मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन प्रोपेगेट कर रही थी. आई थिंक वी ऑल गॉट दोज व्हाट्सएप पर लाइक कि
Yeah,
ये वाली चाय पी लें और ये खा लें और ये कर लें तो जी कोविड ठीक हो
the
जाना है.
pressure cooker
लाइसोल
remedy.
लाइसोल अमेरिकन
Let's
प्रेसिडेंट ने कहा था.
exactly. So वो तो बेस्ट किस्म की आप मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन चल रही थी. So she said what I do is whenever I read news, I take it as information. And then I go and seek knowledge. So I try to find more information about it. So I go fact checking it. I would read articles. I would see if there is something published. And then I disconnect and sit with that information for 5 to 10 minutes and try to see कि ये मुझे बताने की कोशिश क्या कर रहे हैं and drive a wisdom from it and then react on it. अब I understand कि it is like a
It's a
cycle of
very, yeah.
yeah.
But don't you think, considering like I know हम डिस्कस कर सकते हैं कि क्या efficient methodology है, but I think human factor is a very important aspect to it. We human are generally just lazy while we are consuming information.
Yeah.
So don't you think there is much more obligation toward news agencies or like whoever are our source of news, for example, to say such TikTok, right? TikTok is not just a social media platform anymore. It's a very much powerhouse of news source. So don't you think with legislation, like just like equating human factor to say, to leaving everything on their own to like verify, and how many people are going to do that? Because
Yeah.
historically this has been not very useful, like considering we will do this and that and people will go out, people will verify the facts, people will talk with 4 or 5 people. I think it does not resonate with me personally. And also I think there is another, to human factor there is another aspect where, for example, this recent ये जो रेप केस पंजाब कॉलेज का पाकिस्तान का है, I try to check for myself like what's actually happening there, because it seems like there is an element to fake news there. So I try to watch both sides. I try to watch social media, and then I watch some legacy media, watch the press conferences. But to be honest, I'm still confused
Yeah,
because
same.
this is highly like both sides are just extreme positions which doesn't offer much clarity, and being outside it also doesn't help much. So I think we have a very big problem at hand. Like these kind of sensitive topic, rape like topic can become very much controversial. You wanna side with effective saying that rape is something which we shouldn't take like, but then also rape can make people very emotional, right? Which can lead to a chaos as well. So that side is also understandable. So I think none of us has a clear picture at the moment. But this also led me thinking maybe it's also not just about one particular topic. Currently, for example, what's happening in Pakistan, what's happening in state, these are very two extreme examples. People already have very strong emotion, and they want to blame whoever they don't like. For example, I think in generally youth is not very happy in Pakistan. They have a lot of anger in themselves. So इस तरह के जब न्यूज़ आ रही हैं, for example rape हुआ है, we should protest against government. Maybe most of them don't wanna cross check. Maybe don't most of them just go on against the government because that's what make more sense to them. So in summary, I think there is much emotional aspect to it. What you want to believe, what you want to, this is kind of like a reinforcement learning where you just reinforce your own concepts over and over again.
I agree with you. I think there are like social media apps trying to do something similar, like they're trying to add community notes. And the same thing is happening on Instagram, where they're trying to verify what you're sharing, trying to detect if it's been AI is being used to modify or alter the images. How well that's working, I don't know, because again, it's community nodes, so it's crowdsourced. आपके पास इस तरह के elements आ रहे हैं.
Yeah, people in
आपके पास
पाकिस्तान में ग्रुप्स बन गए हैं जहाँ पे वो एक दूसरे को इंस्ट्रक्शन देते हैं कि जाओ इसको जाके कम्युनिटी नोट करो.
अरे वाह.
So
exactly.
yeah.
So I agree. I think there has to be we cannot put every onus on people because अगर आपकी जो है 50-60 मिलियन की फॉलोइंग है तो कुछ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आप पे भी आ रही है. अगर आपने उसे मोनेटाइज किया हुआ है, आप उससे पैसा कमा रहे हैं, तो यू नीड टू फिगर आउट अ वे कि जी आप जो कम्युनिकेट कर रहे हैं वो कितना फैक्चुअल है. Or bring in the sources. You don't have like don't name a person who gave you that news, but bring in some sources. Give me some facts. Give me some figures. Don't tell me कि जी वो जो मेरी चिड़िया है या मेरा बतख है या मेरा
Exactly.
खरगोश है उसने मुझे ये बात बताई है.
Yeah, I think
और
that time has passed now. They need to realize
yeah,
that. Yeah.
because I agree with you. There is an emotion attached to a lot of things, and currently, sometimes you don't want to know. I remember there was this news about this actor, and I saw that news and I reacted. And I remember you texting me, or like double check that you reacted before you actually read through it. And I'm thankful you did it because I don't want to be one of those people that who reacted first and then don't do it. But that's the thing, like
Yeah,
you
but
wouldn't have
tendency हम सब में है वो
yeah,
being human.
बिल्कुल,
Yeah.
because it's the biases, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't want to hear the good thing. We don't want to hear the part there that could debunk our biases. So I mean, there is things being done. I think Meta is trying to do few things. There are things being done on X level, but then again, there उनकी भी अपनी biases हैं. There are very clear partisans.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
and वो आप बहुत clearly देख भी सकते हैं. वो बहुत they wearing their politics on the sleeve, which is fine. You
रिपब्लिकन्स की
can
रैली पे जा रहे हैं.
जी exactly. So आप मतलब you can wear your politics on the sleeve. To be honest, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you wearing your politics on your sleeve, but I'm not okay with seeing that how much money you're giving, how much of your platform is being used.
Yeah.
And that bothers me because that's kind of creating those biases that I'm not feeling comfortable. Like now and when I go on Twitter, I feel like continuously, I don't know why this is like something in my head that I'm like, do I want to hear the point of views? Maybe something is coming to me which is algorithmically biased to not even my opinions, but the opinions of the guy who owns it. So it might not be, but it's something you wore your politics so much on your
Yeah, I
sleeve
think
that
it does have
it's
it does
like
have an impact. Yeah,
yeah.
especially when you're very vocal about it. So, thank
But
you.
I think इसीलिए मैंने कहा था कि we are out of ideas कि इसका क्या हो सकता है, because जो परफेक्ट एग्जांपल थी वो विकिपीडिया ही थी, राइट, जहाँ पे इट्स कम्युनिटी ड्रिवन, largely you get like
Mm,
sensible information out of it. So community notes was a replica of that. They tried to replicate, maybe not in the best way,
yeah,
लेकिन फिर वो ये शुरू हो गया कि कम्युनिटी नोट आ रहा है, फिर कम्युनिटी नोट के नीचे कम्युनिटी नोट आ रहा है,
कम्युनिटी
तो वो
नोट
एक
आ रहा है.
कमेंट्स, लाइक देयर वाज अ चेन ऑफ कम्युनिटी नोट्स,
yeah.
तो it basically
उसने
defeats
अपनी
the
वैल्यू लूज कर दिया, I think,
हम्म.
to begin with. Yeah.
so that means largely there is no, in my opinion, there is no technological solution to that. I don't
Mm,
think there is any solution, and the problem is insane. Like अगर मैं इसको break down करूं, तो there are some facts. One is social media influences people. Two, you can form like strong followings, and based on that you can drive decision making, right? अब now step back, और अगर इसके finances पे देखो, you can actually go to Facebook and X and you can buy following, right? You
mm.
can actually spend, think of it, you can actually spend ad dollars and make your content more visible. Now by transition, that
Increase your
means you
reach.
can you can spend dollars. अगर अगर मैं इसको simplify करूं, you can spend dollars to influence the American election.
But
Like
that
that
had
is
been
the scale
case
of
with the
problem.
legacy media as well.
True,
No,
I
but
agree.
it's no, but like in case of
We have
legacy
some we
media,
have
it will be
some
caught. It will be caught at some point, at some stage. Like it will be easier to catch it. And again, the legacy media does not have the tendency to have the kind of influence that social media has.
no, but
I
what I'm
agree.
trying to say is, apart from the paradigm shift, both medium have the tendency of having money influence, having economical
Yeah.
influence. Like apart from that, just take it as that way. For example, in Pakistan, Imran Riaz Khan, he has one of the biggest social media following, right? So if he is on social media, he knows what his following is. So he's definitely gonna, to stay relevant, he's gonna talk to them what they wanna listen. But also when he is on legacy media, do you think he's gonna be completely a different person? So those ties are still, he knows whenever the other party is gonna come, he's gonna have, for example, look at the number of people who are much more, or another example, look at the new lot of people they are hiring for PTV News. You will see just one set of group which is being very very kind to this new setup of government in Pakistan. And there has been the same kind of cases in US as well, where Wall Street Journal, like, why do you think all of these billionaires own these media agencies if they don't want to have influence? I mean, for me it's very clear.
Yeah, but like it's is it as blatant? No.
I think X is, I mean, one
Oh yeah,
example.
no, no,
So
no.
yeah. So
Forget about
just
X. X,
so
X, X.
but for me it's a parameter, right? If
Mhm.
X is very open, why not the Wall Street Journal? Why do you think he would invest in Wall Street Journal if he doesn't have that political agenda, when Elon Musk has that the same kind of agenda? When he, so what I'm trying to say is, both have different governance level which should maybe be more stricter. But I think, just for me, just saying that it's much more easier to have wider, I think they are very much interconnected now. The more famous you are on social media, the more legacy media will be favorable to you as well.
I think one thing that I want to point out here is the reason legacy media is not that blatant is क्योंकि वो बहुत अरसे से मौजूद है, तो आपकी लॉ मेकिंग काफी ज्यादा हो गई है,
Hmm.
आपकी लेजिस्लेशन बहुत ज्यादा हुई हुई है, आपको पता है आपने जाके पकड़ना किसको है, बिकॉज जर्नलिज्म जो है वो क्राउड फंडेड नहीं है. आपके पास, आपने अगर फ्रीलांसर्स भी हायर किए हैं तो आपके पास हजार, लेट्स से इट्स अ वेरी बिग न्यूज एम्पायर, आपके पास 1000 जर्नलिस्ट हैं. अगर कोई न्यूज आती है तो आपको पता है कि क्या हायरार्की और किसको जाके पकड़ना है और किसके खिलाफ केसेस करने. इफ आई स्टार्ट डूइंग दैट थिंग ऑन सोशल मीडिया, एक तो अनोनिमिटी है, दूसरा ये कि कोई अकाउंटेबिलिटी नहीं है, कोई
अकाउंटेबिलिटी नहीं है.
लेजिस्लेशन नहीं है. आपके पास जो बंदा रन कर रहा है वो एज अ सीईओ ऑफ अ टेक काउंट हो रहा है, नॉट एज अ सीईओ ऑफ अ न्यूज ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. एंड दिस लेजिस्लेशन नीड्स टू बी डन. आपके पास लॉ मेकिंग होने की बहुत जरूरत है.
But
और
monetarily value stays.
oh yeah, definitely, that's not going to change. We need to do lawmaking like Europe is doing lawmaking. Canada did a very amazing job. They're like news ही नहीं दिखाओ social media पे, which is interesting, sure. ऐसे ही करना चाहिए. अब half of the people I know stop reading news because news आई नहीं रही है. So that's like कबूतरी तरह आंखें बंद कर लो. But
Yeah.
you need to do some lawmaking. You need to do a lot of things, and I think that's valid for everything technological. Like आप recently आपने AI का Nobel Prize Physics कैंडिडेट दिया है क्योंकि आपको समझ नहीं आ रहा that should you have a new field or should we do this. So आप ना basically fields को adjust नहीं करें with the way modernization
Chemistry
has
भी.
happened. Yes, the chemistry भी, and the way they are changing. So we need to go with time. We need to do this lawmaking. And I understand the lawmakers are not very caught up. I think I had once like a whole argument with one of the congresswomen where she was saying that face recognition algorithms are racist. And I was like, not the algorithm, women, it's the data side. It's the
It's a
people who are
data, yeah.
training. Yeah. So I think those things that needs to be done.
I think we have reached at a point where we can conclude this, unless if you folks have anything to say.
I think I'm okay. It's been
Yeah.
fun talking to both of you.
Yeah, same.
Likewise.
And for our audience, if you guys have any suggestion for any topic which we should cover, please feel free to reach to us. We know this is our first episode. We might have a lot to improve, but we will be very open for feedback and criticism. But we will try to keep ourselves more focused, not carried away with the feelings and how those bubbles works usually. So I hope you guys will enjoy. Thank you very much. Thank you Tasif and Mariam. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.
See you next time. Bye.